the trade in the illegal trade, the black market trade, has actually increased. It's actually spiked beyond what it was before. So now the government is making less money from an industry that they weren't making much money from before, and there's also the added inconvenience of it all, because previously you could just put your cylinder in your car, go fill in your thing, and now if you don't want to travel halfway across Nairobi to go to a depot, then you have to start carrying it around and shuffling the cylinders around, which is even an even bigger public safety hazard. So talk me through examples of such things and how you think governments can avoid creating these avoidable circumstances.
Right. I'm obviously not as well educated on the particularities of that particular scenario, being that I don't live in Nairobi, and so I don't have day-to-day experience. But that's something that we've seen across, like, even here in Nigeria, and across a lot of other governments, African governments, which is that when we seem to make policies very, I would say, instinctively, or intuitively, where we just think, oh, this is an obvious problem, and therefore the best way to tackle it is just to ban it. Oh, you can't do this anymore. Yeah. That's it, problem solved. And you realize that most problems are very complex, and I wish more of our governments would take their time to study problems, right? Don't just make a decision once you encounter a problem. Study it. Take your time and try to understand the nuances of the problem. We don't do that a lot of the time. Another thing that we don't do enough of is have like multiple proposed solutions and test them, right? Test whether this actually brings down the problem or not, right? So one of the incidences, like you said, I should mention some cases where we've seen that is, an obvious one is the ban for importation of rice, where overnight we've made Benin Republic one of the biggest importers of rice in the world, right? And we know that all that rice is really just coming to our market. Yeah. So you've created a smuggling industry. Maybe, it was always there, but now you've maybe tripled it, right? And there's nothing, because a better way to do that is to allow local production to catch up, and then maybe subsidize local production, and then give it time. They're already doing some of that, but then they just slap a ban on a behavior, and then think that, oh well, problem has been solved. So our governments, that's just one. We do something similar with our petrol subsidies, right? Petrol subsidies and some of the rules that we make around who can buy them and who cannot. We make something like that. We make decisions like that around our garments industry. There's so many things that we do where we just look at a certain behavior, and then the government thinks we don't want this anymore, so let's just ban it. And human beings are not that simple, right? So they'll find ways. So if you want to solve a problem, I wish we'll take a little bit more time to study the problems that we want to solve, also test the solutions that we want to implement, and then see which one actually gets to the heart of the problem and involve, and the last point I'm trying to make is involve the people that are impacted in your solutions. So if you want to solve a problem about, Okadas not being safe, right? That's one obvious problem that we've had, where we said, fine, we're banning Okadas and introducing kekes, right? Get the people who ride Okadas, get the people who drive, get different people, and then try to understand what is it that makes Okada because there's nothing that is completely positive or completely negative. So if there's a problem that you're seeing, there's someone who that problem favors and there's someone who it hurts. Yes. Understand both sides before you start thinking about a solution. So that we tend to make decisions at the top, right, and just expect everybody to just follow along.
And it's funny you say that, because I was listening to the radio this morning when I was driving to the studio, and I heard a news headline that just totally blew my mind, and I thought, no, this is like, surely the host has made a mistake. So when I got to the office, I actually had to Google it, and sure enough, it's a thing. So apparently, the Nigerian president was having I think it was on his Twitter handle, and he was complaining about statistics. that portray Nigeria in a bad light, and he basically said, "Look, we don't like those statistics. Make up some new ones." And to me that to me that comes across as a larger symptom of what you just described. So I see something I don't like, and I'm sitting on my high horse somewhere, and I'm like, I don't like that. Change it.
Well, I don't know. I didn't see that, but I know that I wouldn't be shocked if that was true. Like you said, you had to go back and look at it. But I've seen stranger things in the space we're in Nigeria, in other countries. I've seen so many things that I'm like, there's no way that can be true. There's really no way that can be true, and yet somehow it is.
It surprises you,
yeah.
I'm actually going to read out the tweet in a bit because it's. I think it's a really important thing, and I think it really adds something to the show, because I think this, although the show is focusing on Kenya, but I think this is a general African issue. With that, we seem to have our government seems to be so out of touch with the ground level reality. So I don't think you'd go out on the streets and you'd accost random people and tell them about the statistics that the IMF and the World Bank have on Nigeria, and they'd argue those things with you. Because I think the poverty...
They leave the reality of it.
But then you talk to a governor or the president or a senator, and they'd argue with you that no, that is not the case. So I'm looking at the headline now on Premium Times, and it says, World Bank, IMF, others publishing inaccurate data about Nigeria, says Buhari.
How? So I have just one question about that. How does he know it's inaccurate? I understand that and obviously he's the president. Obviously he has information more than, I guess, the average person. But for you to make an assertion, being president doesn't remove the need for your assertions to be backed up by some kind of fact. So if you're saying IMF and the rest are giving wrong data, where is the right data? Where are you getting that from, right? So again, the policies that we make, have to be grounded in something. And talking about Red Tape Africa, which is just how the policies we make help or hurt a business. If your policies are not, if you're not grounding them in any kind of reality, then how do you know that you're actually helping? So even for the president, it's his responsibility to ground that kind of assertion in fact. So where are those facts coming from that he's saying these guys are wrong? How does he know that? That's my question.
I'm just going to read out the tweet in itself. So the tweet says, today, most of the statistics quoted about Nigeria are developed abroad by the World Bank, IMF, and other foreign bodies. Some of these statistics are wild estimates that bear little relation to the facts on ground. So this is what the Nigerian president said on Twitter yesterday. So just linking that to what you said about African governments and people in African governments seeming to just throw their solutions to problems from a great height and not really sit down to consider what is going on.
And again, so I'm not IMF, like I happen to believe everyone has their agenda, right? So IMF is not necessarily more right than the president, or the president is not necessarily more. Like, I'm not in favor of anybody. The only thing I'm saying is, if you think, like, the way we make decisions and the way we make policy has to connect to the grassroots, connect to the people. So if you think that IMF's data is wrong, I'm expecting that you have a different set of data. You have something else that you can show that is also grounded in reality, that you can say, okay, let's say IMF says GDP is 2.5, right? And the government believes that GDP is actually 5.5. Well, let's see your homework, right? You can't sit in Abuja and know what the GDP is. You have to check it from all 36 states and then compile it together. So let's see your data, and then let's see your IMF's data. Then make your argument. Don't just say, oh, they are wrong because I'm the president, right? So we see a lot of that in Africa, but that doesn't help anybody.
Right. We're going to go on a short break. When we come back, we're going to listen to some of your feedback. We have a couple of voice notes, we have some tweets, and we have a recording of a news story from a TV station in Kenya. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available as podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.
Cut through the ball with Red Tape Africa. Follow us on all social media at Red Tape Africa and tweet at us using the hashtag Red Tape Africa. Red Tape Africa. Economic policy impact in plain English.
You're still listening to Red Tape Africa with David Hundeyin and my guest,
Eke.
Right. And we're talking about the business environment in Kenya, and we're linking this to a general African problem of governments seeming to interfere with business and make the operating environment for businesses more difficult than it needs to be. As I said, we want to interact with you, so feel free to send in your tweets. The hashtag is Red Tape Africa. That is hashtag Red Tape Africa. We've received a couple of voice notes already, and bear in mind that you're always welcome to send in more. The number to send in voice notes on is +234 701 650 8975. That is +234 701 650 8975. You can also tweet at my personal handle at David Hundeyin, and you can tweet at Uru at
Eldivine, ELDIVYN. And again, that hashtag is Red Tape Africa. For those of you following us, please send your thoughts in.
And obviously, you can also tweet at Africa Business Radio. Don't forget to follow our handles on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Red Tape Africa and at Africa Business Radio. Now, the new topic that I was going to jump into as a corollary to what we've been discussing so far is, this isn't strictly business related, but this is also in Kenya. And I think this is a symptom of the same issue that we've been discussing. Now, I'm reading an article on businessdailyafrica.com, and it says that with immediate effect, the Kenyan taxman has introduced new rules, basically, that make it such that anyone looking for alternative dispute resolution, like the legal process. So instead of going to court, you want to use ADR, which is much quicker. If you want to use ADR, then you must be tax compliant, which essentially means that if you want to avoid the long story of an African court process, which can take years, and you want to use alternative dispute resolution, which can be a matter of days or weeks, then you have to show a tax compliance certificate. On paper, that may seem to be harmless, but in reality, what then happens is that because obviously, given that it's a typical African economy, there's an entire class of people who have never interacted with the tax system before.
Right.
And these are the people who need ADR the most.
Absolutely.
These are the people for whom a 3-year court battle is just not feasible. So a street trader whose total annual income is not up to $1,500 US, that's not the person who is going to want to go to the court and hire a lawyer and all that. That's the person who needs ADR.
Right.
And you're asking this fellow to show a tax compliance certificate, which essentially means that you are shaking down the most vulnerable people in the population. Right. So how do you think this is going to impact on the Kenyan population? And strictly speaking, this doesn't necessarily apply to you in an investment sense, but just give me your take on this.
Yeah, my personal thoughts. I think closing down a justice or an option, a path to justice for anybody on the basis of their compliance with tax regulations or not is ill-advised. I don't know that it's so if what they are trying to achieve is for more people to comply with